Hi, I'm Sebastian from Profil, and I'm glad to welcome you, Adrian Jones from Nine Stones Close. Obviously, we'll talk about races and the 10th anniversary edition, but first of all, when and how the band was born?
Yeah, good question.
One thing I read, it was during a convention in Holland, and guess what? I was there.
Ah, oh, you were definitely there. It was that one.
Tell us about
Well,
this
actually,
beautiful story.
yeah, it started just before that actually. So I made an album called San Low, which was a purely personal project. So after I'd finished making that and had some CDs pressed up, I decided I needed to get rid of the CDs somehow. So I went along to the Marillion weekend in 2009, and luckily the folks at Marillion were very happy for me to give away CDs to people at the Marillion weekend. So I took a box of about 500 CDs down there, stood in the bar, as you probably remember, because that's probably where I met you the first time. Basically, just giving away copies of Sanlo, chatting to people, and trying to build some interest in Nine Stones Close. And that's where I met Brendan. So both of us were in the bar. I think it was the second morning with pretty heavy hangovers, as you do at the Marillion weekend. And we struck up a conversation about music, and he talked to me a little bit about Riversea that he was working on, and I talked to him a bit about what I was trying to do with Nine Stones Close, and we kept in touch. And from there, it really grew. So that's where kind of Tracers came about. Was I'd started working on Tracers, and Brendan, in the meantime, contacted me to add some guitars to a Christmas track he was working on. And as I'd done that, I said to him, "Well, I've got this track. Maybe you could add some keyboards to it and see how it goes." So I sent him a track over, and he added some keyboards to it and sent it back, and it sounded fantastic. And then a few days later, he sent back the track again, and he said, "I've asked my friend Mark to put some vocals on it." Well, he said I sent it to him just to see if he was interested, and he ended up writing a lyric. Sent it back with the vocal on, and that's what became Falling to Pieces. And I was blown away, and from there we continued to work together. So it was, yeah, it was a really great start to something really fantastic.
Something beautiful. And why is that name Nine Stones Close?
It's a stone circle, or what's left of a stone circle in Derbyshire in England. So it's not far from where I grew up. So we used to go walking in that area a lot when we were kids. And my wife actually came up with the name, so we were trying to think of a name. She was doing an internet search, and that's what came up, and said, "Oh yeah, that sounds really cool. So let's go for that."
Okay. Then you formed the band and released Traces in 2010. Were you lucky beginners, as it appears to be a fantastic album?
It's yeah, I was quite surprised how it turned out myself, to be honest. So it was fantastic working with Brendan and Mark as well. And also at the time, I met a guy who was working on some guitars for me, Neil Quarrell, who added some bass to a few tracks. But it was a fun time, and in terms of music anyway. But it was also a kind of a strange time for me because my father was really ill. He was living with my mother in Portugal, and he'd got very bad cancer, and that's kind of what inspired a lot of the lyrics and the music around the album. So it was kind of a bittersweet time in a way, in that it was a very, very sad time. It was also an interesting time for me working with Mark and Brendan. So it was, yeah, very strange. But I think it poured a lot of emotion into the music.
What was the feedback at that time?
Well, initially, very little really. I knew some people on the Pineapple Thief forum as it was in those days. So I knew we used to chat a lot on the forum there, and they were really the first people to buy some of the music that I was creating, and from there it really kind of grew, and mostly kind of people that were at the Marillion convention. A few of them had picked up on Sam Lowe and were interested enough to give me another go, and they picked up on Traces as well, and then gradually word just seemed to spread. I did a few internet radio shows, particularly with Air Radio as it was at the time, and a couple of other things. And interest steadily grew until it just kind of took off, really. And then not long after that, I was contacted by Sean over at Prog Rock Records, who asked me if I'd be interested in signing up with them to get it distributed through the US and other places as well. And from there, that's where it really picked up. But yeah, it was quite unexpected, really.
Musically speaking, what was the main idea? What did you aim to do writing Traces? What was your artistic vision?
For me, it's always just whatever's in my mind and my heart at the time. So my music always just comes from what's going on in my life. So initially, when I started writing Traces, I had something very different in mind, and then personal circumstances took over, and it just became this thing, and it has a whole feel to it. I think of around. It certainly reminds me of around that time. And it took on a shape that I wasn't quite expecting. So it's quite melancholy, dark, but also I think a little bit uplifting as well. But it was, it wasn't until I really met Mark and Brendan and we started to develop the tracks a bit further that it started to come together as a whole piece, basically. So originally it started off as a couple of songs and then grew from there. Into this, I guess, a kind of concept team that's very loose, but it does sound, kind of like one piece to me. So,
and it was remastered last year by producer and sound engineer Paul van Zeeland. It sounds spectacular and fresh. What do you think? Did it take long to remaster it?
He actually remixed it. Directly from the original tracks, so he basically started from scratch again. Because obviously, when I first released the album, I mixed it myself. I had it mastered by a guy in America, and it was as good as it could possibly be at the time. But Paul is an amazing engineer and mixing engineer, way beyond my skills. So he took the original tracks and started again, and he did an incredible job, and it's just given it so much more shine and energy and precision. It just sounds amazing. So I'm very, very happy with it. So yeah, it was one of those things where I knew the 10th anniversary was coming up, and I still get lots of emails from people saying, "Oh, the CD's out of print. Where can I get a copy?" So there's really only the download available, and that's when discussed with Freya Music about putting something out, and he suggested doing this as a vinyl release, which always appeals to me because I'm a vinyl lover. So that's the way we went, and maybe eventually it will come out on CD again as well, because there still seems to be some demand there for it. So
nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the artwork by Antonio Serras is very nice too. How did you meet and work together? I know the answer.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's all connections to Marillion again, I guess. But
of course.
Actually, it was through Franz Kahlert. So yeah, there we go. Indeed. Well, it was through Franz Kahlert, that he suggested contacting Antonio. I knew his artwork from Marillion and from Gazpacho and other people, and I didn't really know what to do at the time of One Eye on the Sunrise, and that's where his name came up, and that appealed to me. And since then, we've struck up a great working relationship. So he just does amazing interpretations of my music. So he takes the music and the lyrics and comes up with these fantastic images, which is just brilliant to see. So ever since One Eye in the Sunrise, he's done every cover for me, and including Jet Black Sea, which is a different kind of artwork, but also stunning. So when we came to the 10th anniversary edition, when it was going to come out on vinyl, we knew we had to reformat all the old images and create some inner sleeve and all the other things. So at that time, I thought, well, it's had a fresh mix. It's time to give it a fresh look as well. So I contacted Antonio and asked him if he would be interested in doing the artwork for it, and he agreed. And I sent him over the new mixes, and this is what he came up with, and I was blown away instantly. The first image he sent back was the cover, and there was no need to change anything. It was perfect. So
Brilliant, perfect.
Yeah, he's a fantastic artist. He really is.
What are the plans? What are your plans for the future?
That's a very good question. I think, like everyone else, COVID has kind of got in the way of many things. I also moved from the Netherlands to Germany 3 years ago as well, which also kind of changed things a little bit in terms of trying to work with people. But soon after that, I was ill for a while, and then COVID started to kick in. So we've really not had a chance to carry on with what we were doing with Nine Stones Close. Christian and I had actually spent quite a bit of time writing after the last album, and we actually had pretty much all of the next album written and demoed. But that was, I guess, well, must be 4 years or so ago now. So, so all of the tracks are still sat on my hard drive in the studio and on Christian's, and we keep trying to find a way to get together to make this album. But until we can actually get together, play, rehearse, and record properly, it's I don't think it will happen. I think it's the same problem a lot of bands have now, but with us being spread across different countries, it makes it even trickier. We could do it remotely, sharing files and recording parts, but I'd really like to get together and record it, which was the original plan, because it's a different kind of vibe to the last couple of albums. And we were hoping to basically record it live in the studio and maybe do a few overdubs afterwards, but to try and keep the feel that we had for the demos. So hopefully it will happen in the not too distant future. But that's COVID dependent right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
I sometimes used to end my interviews with short questions. So I have one for you. Your guitar hero. Who is your guitar hero?
I have a lot of them.
Two.
The reason I picked up a guitar was Jimmy Page. I think that's fair to say. So after seeing the film of The Song Remains the Same, that's when I really wanted a guitar. But in terms of influences, there's so many. I mean, Gilmour, obviously. But also people like Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, who I think is an incredible, inventive guitarist. Andy Latimer, fantastic lyrical player. There's just so many. Even people like Ty Tabor from King's X was a huge influence as well. His use of drop D and how he phrases different things is incredible. One of my favourite bands. So yeah, I listen to a lot of music from everything from jazz fusion right through to the other end of the spectrum with death metal. So it depends on what mood I'm in as to what's an influence really.
The artist you would have loved to play with?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think probably someone like Mark Hollis actually would be interesting. I'm a huge Talk fan and a massive fan of Mark Hollis and his voice and the work he did with Talk, which people might find surprising, I guess. But yeah, he's kind of one of my heroes. Would have been amazing to work with somebody like that, to see where he would push you in new directions.
The album you will bring to paradise. One album.
Probably, if you could only take one album, that would be pretty difficult. But most likely it would be Talk, Spirit of Eden. I think that would be probably my choice.
And if you had a wish, what would it be?
I try not to wish.
A beautiful wish.
My wish is always kind of a bit too big, I guess. Kind of world peace and health and happiness for everyone. But that's definitely not going to happen.
Happiness is the road.
We live in hope. We live in hope. So.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks for your answers. The best of luck to you and see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Great to talk to you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.